Hagley Woods, a private estate in Birmingham, in England's Midland, the very location of a disturbing discovery on a Sunday morning in April 1943. A discovery that, to this day, has no one to blame for it, and police baffled. Today, we'll go over the evidence and the theories behind Bella and the Wych Elm. 4 boys, Robert Hart, Thomas Willits, Fred Payne, and Bob Farmer, were looking for birds' nests in Hagley Woods near Wychbury Hill when they came across a large wych elm. The wych elm is a tree which is common in the north and west of the British Isles. They can grow up to 1,500 meters tall. The name wych comes from the Old English weis, meaning pliant or supple. The elm they discovered had an opening that led into a space within the trunk. Looking down into the trunk of the massive tree, Bob Farmer noticed a strange object staring back at him from the darkness. A human skull that had been rotting within the tree for some time. The skull was mostly decomposed to the bone, with 2 crooked teeth jutting out of the mouth and a chunk of hair attached to some remaining flesh on the forehead. After taking a good look, the boys fled the forest and agreed amongst themselves to not tell anyone about it, because they felt they would get in trouble for trespassing if they went to the police. However, one of the boys felt rather guilty about what he saw and told his father. Soon after, the police were called to the scene. What they found inside the old tree trunk was bizarre. The skeleton of a young woman, minus one of her hands, along with a shoe, a gold wedding ring, and some fragments of clothing with the labels cut out. A piece of taffeta was stuffed inside the skull's mouth. The woman's hand was missing, but not far, for they found the bones of it scattered next to the tree. There wasn't much information on who the woman was, but this is what was determined by pathologist James Webster. The victim died around 18 months prior to the discovery, was around 35 years old, 5 foot tall, had brown hair, irregular teeth, and had given birth in the past. Webster found no obvious injuries on her body and concluded that she had died of asphyxiation due to the cloth stuffed down her throat. He also determined that she was placed in the tree shortly after death before rigor mortis set in, as the space was so small she had to be flexible enough to fit inside. From Webster's work, police were able to create a detailed sketch of the woman, but no one came forward, and the search of 3,000 missing persons case around the county proved fruitless. A nationwide search of dental practices also drew a blank. The woman had had dental work done within the year before her death, but there was no trace of her presence at any clinic. Unfortunately, the case went rather cold, and the interest of the press and the police soon faded, as wartime was upon them and it was taking up most of people's thoughts. The area had suffered 3 years of bombing, and life was hard. By Christmas 1943, people had nearly forgotten about the strange case of the woman and the elm tree, until the graffiti started. Found on walls throughout the West Midlands, seemingly by the same person. "Who put Lou Bella down the wych elm?" the first one read. Then, "Hagley Wood Bella." And soon it settled on, "Who put Bella in the wych elm?" Either someone knew more about the case than the police, or they were being provoked. Were they to blame for the murder? Did they know who did it, or were they just trolling? This was when the theories began to form. Folklorist Margaret Murray suggested Bella had been killed by an occult ceremony. The removal of the hand was typical of black magic execution. Another theory was that Bella had become fallen victim to a coven of witches started to become a popular story, but the absence of leads from the police still left the case as cold as ever. It wasn't until 1953 when one journalist would finally bring forth the first solid lead. A letter signed only Anna offered new details about what had happened to Bella. It stated that Bella had been involved with a certain German party. We'll call them the Nazis. Bella was said to have been part of a spy ring, which was a little more believable than witchcraft and rituals. But what evidence did they have to believe this? Let's discuss. The journalist I mentioned was Wilfred Byford Jones, who received a letter from Anna in 1953, which included the following excerpts. Finish your articles regarding the Wych Elm crimes by all means. They're interesting to your readers, but you'll never solve the mystery. The one person who will give the answer is now beyond the jurisdiction of earthly courts. The affair is closed and involves no witches, black magic, or moonlight rites. After subsequent correspondence, Anna revealed herself to be Una Mosup and told her side of the story. Anna's husband Jack had worked at a local munitions factory in the early 1940s and had come into some money after meeting with a not sea agent. Jack had been passing him information about local industry sites, which in turn passed to another agent posing as a cabaret performer at local theaters. This was our Bella in theory. One day, Jack met his contact at a pub close to Hagley Wood. He was arguing with a Dutch woman and ordered Jack to drive them both out of the city. On that drive, the argument between the two got rather heated and the agent strangled the Dutch woman in the car. Fearing for his own life, Jack helped carry the body into the Hagley Wood and stored it in the hollow of the old elm tree. Jack was apparently so traumatized that he had a nervous breakdown and had to be institutionalized in 1941, where he died later that year, bearing any confirmation of this tale. The predicted time of Bella's death, however, did line up with the story. It was something, but no perpetrators were ever connected to the case, and again it started to lose interest. That was until it was brought up again 15 years later. Donald McCormick refused to let the case die when he brought up the records of German military intelligence. Information that talked about a not sea agent named Lehrer operating in the Midlands in 1941 who had a Dutch girlfriend living in Birmingham called Clarabella Dronkers, who apparently had crooked teeth. In 1942, a German spy was captured and executed at Wandsworth Prison on New Year's Eve. His name was Johannes Murinus Dronkers, perhaps Bella's husband? If Bella was a former spy or a wife of one, her records wouldn't be in England, which explains why no one could find any trace of her there. While the triangle of names and their relationships remain unclear, the notions that Bella was involved in some kind of spy ring seems quite convincing. Perhaps she had become too loose-lipped about who they were and was risking getting them all caught and had to be silenced. Declassified MI5 files had some elements of doubt to the spy theory, but it seems like the only working theory people have. It's possible we'll never know what happened in Hagley Wood that day, but graffiti is a constant reminder. In fact, just a few years ago, it appeared on a 200-year-old Witchbury obelisk at Hagley Hall, donning the same haunting question: who put Bella in the Wych Elm? Now, some of you have asked for my opinion on these cases. Now, while I don't have any of the answers, I think the spy theory is a pretty convenient answer for the time. It was topical. Do I think it's the right answer? I don't know. She was certainly murdered, and somebody thought they could get away with it. And they were right. Now, I wish I had more of an interesting insight as to what I think, but I'm just as in the dark as everybody else about this case. I don't think it was witches, though. Thanks for listening. Consider subscribing for more true horror stories or more light-hearted horror movie reviews. If you have any stories you'd like me to look into, please send me a PM on Twitter, or leave it in the comments below. I do try to read all of them. Once again, if you guys are fans of the Holder or SCP series, consider becoming a patron because they get one video a month that nobody else gets featuring these two types of stories. Till next time, be well.